Hello and welcome to the oddschecker preview, the York Ebor Festival preview podcast and video. This is the preview for day one of the York Ebor Festival, and I am joined, the Wednesday, I should say, and I am joined by Oddschecker's two very own tipsters, the old guard, I'll say, Andy Holding, who's been with us for a long while and very popular indeed as well. Andy, good to have you here with us.
Yeah, good to be here as always, George. Yeah, I always look forward to these. It kind of like trains your mind into getting switched on and to get focused into how the week might pan out. Obviously, we all do the weather forecast and try and get a bit of a heads up there and see if we can nick a little bit of value and hopefully we can give the punters one or two nice steers towards the middle to back end of the week.
Absolutely. And we're recording this at about 12:30 on Monday afternoon, so I definitely need something to help me focus. Fingers crossed you're the same as well. Daryl Carter of the Oddschecker Daily Nap. Daryl, how are you doing? Good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I really look forward to these. Should just say the naps been a bit wayward this week, but we're on a little bit of a bad run, but things have definitely turned around. I really look forward to this meeting every year. So hopefully we've got a few decent tips lined up for the viewers today.
Fingers crossed. And you say you're in a bit of a bad run, but by the time this goes out this afternoon, you never know. Maybe you'll be 1 from 1 this week. So fingers crossed. We'll have to see. The one place you can find Daryl's daily nap is on the Oddschecker app, and it's the fastest way you can get Andy's apps every day as well. Andy's tips, I should say, every day as well. So make sure you download the Oddschecker app. It's a thing to do now, so that as we're talking through the races, as I say, we're recording this on Monday afternoon, so some of these prices might be a little bit dated. So get the app out, follow along with us as we go, and you can get all the best prices, the best bookie offers, the best free bets, and the very best tipsters, including the two on the line with me right now as well. Let's get into the racing. And as I say, this is the preview for Wednesday's racing. We're going to record Thursday after this, and then on Thursday, we're going to record Friday and Saturday. So we've got you absolutely covered. And before we talk about the first race of the day, before we talk about the handicap, I should mention that the Betfair Exchange have a brilliant offer for York called the Free Bet Streak. Simply bet £20 on the opening race of the festival, and when it settles, you'll receive a £20 free bet. This is on the exchange, not the sportsbook. This can then be split into multiple bets, and if you win that bet, you'll receive a further free bet for the following day, and so on. So something to think about. We're going to come back to that in a second. But Andy, I'm going to come to you first here just after I've run through the market. So Jawal is the 8-1 favourite. We have Arecibo 12-1, Lahore 12-1, Jonah Jones 12-1, Aplomb 14-1, Acclaim the Nation 14-1, Magic J 14-1. 22 left in there as it stands. Most firms have gone 5 places. A tough one to try and solve first up of the week.
Yeah, real baptism of fire, isn't it? To get stuck into this race. I think it's a race tradition. I've had a little bit of a go in the last few years and haven't really had too much success. So I think I'm probably going to skip this one with regards putting a tip out for Oddschecker. I usually end up putting about 4 or 5 horses in the play spot, and I've sometimes actually gone out by putting in as many as that. So it shows you how difficult this race is to kick off. Draw obviously major importance, and where the pace is, and the weather, of course, as well. Looking at the long range forecast, I think today, tomorrow, and in particular going into Wednesday, that's when we're likely to get the worst of the weather. But then from sort of Thursday, Friday onwards into the weekend, it's going to be nice and dry. So I think it's going to be on the easier side, perhaps come Wednesday stroke into Thursday. So do bear that in mind if you're punting here. I'm a bit of a soft spot and a sucker for a horse called Magic J, who I tipped on the Oddschecker pages last time out at Ascot. And to my horror, he got the worst possible ride you can imagine for a horse who often gets a hold-up ride. His previous victories, particularly at Sandown the time before when he was held up off the speed and then came through, I was hoping that Eugene Murphy would do that exactly the same. But he took this horse to the front last time out, to my horror. And even after 2 furlongs, even though he was travelling and trading short in running, I knew he wouldn't get home. So many horses at front runners. It's a front runner's graveyard at Ascot. So many that tried to do what he did, succumbed to the deep closers, and that's exactly what happened. I actually thought in the cold light day he didn't run too bad. He got beat 3 lengths in the end by Tony Barone, who clearly likes the track. But the race has worked out well. The third Conchecker's won. Mountain Peak, the fourth horse of Ed Walker's, has won subsequently. So the horses that finished ahead of him have actually gone on to at least boost the form line. But you can forget that run. That just wasn't him. He's got the blinkers on as well for the first time. I don't really know why they put blinkers on. I think it was the connection's fault for cocking up and riding him the way they did, rather than the horse needing a set of headgear. I don't think he's dodgy in any stretch of the imagination at all. But he does travel well. He's got a good draw right in the middle, so he can get buried in the pack. And York is very much more of a hold-up track as well, where you just need to be in behind the speed rather than blasting from the front. So I'd give him another go. I think he's certainly better than what we saw at Ascot. They got everything wrong that day, but hopefully if they give him a bit more of a chance, he'll prove that he's a progressive sprinter.
Magic J 14-1 with Bet365, Sky Bet, Bet Victor, and Boyle Sports. Daryl, coming to you next. It's always, your Shrewies. I just have a feeling you're going to tell me that you have Magic J on your shortlist as well, but you let me know what you've got.
I had Magic J on my shortlist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. He's drawn right next to the pace in terms of Acclaim the Nation in 8 and Acclaim the Nation in 9. I thought he would be sitting prominently, but not too close to the pace. And prominent runners in this race in the last 5 years have had a massive advantage. The last 5 winners were all ridden prominently here. And they all come down the middle of the track. So draw 8 and 9, it just looks set to be set up lovely for him, really. The other one I had a massive case here for Miras, but they pulled him out at the last minute. I'm absolutely infuriated because I thought he was an absolute shoo-in for this race. But Acclaim the Nation is the other one I might take a chance on. I think Jason Hart's just ridden him. He's just set too fast a fractions the last twice, and he's just been caught by Lahore here on his penultimate start. He's better off at the weights with that one. And then again at Goodwood, he just got done by a neck by only spoofing. I think he's definitely got a race in him, Acclaim the Nation. And he's gonna give you a run for his money. Whether he can hold on or not, that's going to be the case over this extra half a furlong, if you like. But mad, isn't it, really? 22 runners, and me and Andy agree on the first horse in the race. But Magic J was going to be the one. Acclaim the Nation, perhaps a small each-way bet as well. But the one thing I would say is don't worry about too much about weights in this race. I mean, the last 5 winners were rated 102, 102, 101 and 104. So those at the top of the weights, they do well. It's a very competitive opener. It'd be interesting to see if there's any more money for Jamal on the day. Normally, we have a bit of a gamble going on the first race of the day in this one. There's nothing wrong with Jamal at the top of the market, apart from the price of 8-1. I tend to steer clear of any favourites at the top of these sort of races. I know 8-1, like you mentioned before, George, is an attractive price in itself if you was in a completely different race. But I think others have similar claims at bigger prices, and one of those is Magic J, and the other one is Acclaim the Nation.
It's the kind of race where, even though it's a big field and the 22 runners, I have a feeling whatever goes off favourite will probably go off shorter than 8-1, because normally the money comes for something, and that could be Jawal, who's currently 8-1 favourite. Acclaim the Nation, as you mentioned, is kind of your second pick, is 14-1 with Boyle Sports best price. Andy, I'm guessing if you were playing the free bet streak for Betfair Exchange, it would go on Magic J?
It would. It's a race I normally like to have a couple of interests in. Most sprint handicaps, that tends to be my strategy. But on this particular occasion, I'm not even going to complicate it, because I just know this Magic J is potentially still a handicap. The time figure he did when he won at the Sandown suggested to me that he was virgin on pattern class. Unfortunately, he didn't back it up last time out. The market suggested he was going to, but as I said, without labouring the point, he didn't get ridden to best effect. But if he's just given a little bit of a chance, like Daryl says, you don't want to be too far back here, but he's got such a good cruising speed. They can just slot him behind, and he's got the pace horse right next to him, so he can just take a pull, just follow his trail really down the furlong pond. He's got a really good turn of foot, this horse. So I'm going to maintain the faith with him and just stick with Magic J. I don't need any more darts at the board.
And Daryl, yours would go. Your 20 quid would go there as well.
Yeah, definitely.
There we go. So Magic J is the one to get us underway on Wednesday at York. Onto the second race of the day, 7 furlong race. We've got 8 in there at the moment, the Magic 8. This is the Tattersalls Akum Stakes. And Cloudbridge is the 9-4 favourite. Some disagreement in the market here. Cloudbridge 9-4 favourite with Sky Bet, but 13-8 with William Hill, 7-4 with Ball Sports, and 15-8 with Unibet. So that suggests the prices here might date quite quickly. Darvel is 130 second favourite. Royal Scimitar is the 9-2 third favourite, ahead of Gear Up at 6-1. Titan Rock 12-1 alongside Prince Praise of Shadows. Broxy 25 to 1, Spy Catcher 28 to 1. 8 runners at the moment, Andy. What do we make of this as it stands?
Yeah, I'd have more of a strong view on the 2-year-old race here at York than I would on a 6 furlong sprint handicap. The time figure's been working out really well with the 2-year-olds. So I've got a pretty good handle on who's likely to take this race, and certainly can cast aside ones that can't win because their figures just don't add up. I put up a horse called River Alwen on the site last week at a nice each way price, and he floored the odds on favourite of Roger Varians. And he finished third to a horse called Cloudbridge at Leicester first time out. And again, time figure wise, this horse has got so much in hand in this field. It's quite ridiculous, really. I was hoping that Fen Rover was going to run and kind of bolster the price for an each way perspective. I was hoping for the 9-2. He was 9-2 anti-post, but now he's out. Obviously, the market's reformed. I know that Rhythm Master, the Fahey horse, was going to run in the Gimcrack, so he was definitely one worth backing from an anti-post perspective. But even now at 9-4, I still think he's worth a little bit of an interest. He'll definitely be a horse I'll be putting up come Wednesday morning based on his numbers. I like the way he did it. He just slightly outpaced, and then he finished his race off very strong. But that's exactly what kind of horse often wins at York, particularly on the round track. You don't want them too close to the speed. You just want them coming through late on. So he looks as though he ticks quite a lot of boxes. Nice colt as well in the making. Darville's probably the main threat. He improved from his first run to his second run. He didn't clock a bad time when he won at Ayr last time out. So if you fancy him, he's not dead in the water as regards figures. But the likes of Royal Scimitar, Praise the Shadows, particularly Gear Up, haven't done anywhere near the kind of numbers that suggest their Group 3 standard. Even Titan Rock, to be honest. I put him up when he won at Goodwood, but he didn't run the kind of number there that suggested he's quite as good, and he's only got a rating of 85. So, you're going to need a horse probably in the 90s, mid-90s to win this. Cloudbridge definitely is that based on these numbers that he clocked at Leicester. So confident choice here for Cloudbridge.
Cloudbridge 9-4 at the moment with Sky Bet, but as I said, a couple of firms, including William Hill, going 13-8. So take that 9-4 probably if you can. Daryl, who are you fancying in this 2-year-old race?
I've not got a strong opinion on these 2-year-old races. Andy definitely more than covered the race for me. He is. I just wanted to ask him quickly though. Praise the Shadows. How far off Cloudbridge? I mean, we've got 3 places here. Praise the Shadows. I was quite impressed with the way he did it at Chester. I didn't think the track would totally suit. Big, long striding type. I thought York would really suit. How far off the rest of these is Praise of the Shadows in terms of your figures for a place?
Well, I'll tell you what they've done. I've got 91 for Cloudbridge, which is above average. Anything that does over a 90 on our numbers is group class for a 2-year-old. He did 84 at Chester, so that's not bad. He's not too far off. Second in his Darville with an 87, but then the rest are all 70s and 81, like for Royal Scimitar, 76 for Gear Up. So those kind of horses, they've got to improve massively in what they've done. They're too far behind a horse who's done a 91, but somewhere in the mid 80s, like say 84 for the Botty horse who did it well around Chester. Yeah, he'd still have to improve to beat Cloudbridge, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility. And the fact that he's 12-1. Based on our numbers, I'd rather back him each way at 12 than I would Gear Up or Royal Scimitar based on what they've done.
Yeah, perfect.
So the eye test and the data agrees. Praise of Shadows looks to be the value at 12-1 if you're looking for an each way bet. So we can go into this double-handed, I reckon, with Cloudbridge and Praise of Shadows. Anything you wanted to add in terms of Praise of Shadows there, Daryl?
No. It's very interesting to see what sort of figures he did, because he was pleasing on the eye. I didn't think Chester was really suited to his run style. He's got a massive long stride, very green when he hit the front, but kept on for pressure. I just really like the way he did it. I thought he would come on again for that run. So, and now with Andy's figures, I think 12-1 each way with 3 places on offer, perhaps even without the favourite on the day. If Andy's that confident on Cloudbridge, I think could write a bet.
There you have it. Praise of Shadows 12-1 with Betfred, Paddy Power, Betfair Sportsbook, and Sky Bet. On now to the third race of the day, and it's the Voltigeur, and we have, sponsored by Sky Bet, I should say, and Mogul is the 2-1 favourite ahead of Darrain at 3-1. Roberto Escobar is 7-1, Highland Chief 8-1, Pyledriver 11-1, Berkshire Rocco 12-1, Subjectivist 12-1, Juan Elcano 14-1. It's another Magic 8 as it stands. Daryl, I'll come to you first up here. 2 at the top of the market, with very different form figures. It's fair to say, different profiles. Do you think they have them the right way around as it stands?
I don't know how the hell Mogul's 2-1 for this race. I really don't. I mean, what's he done? I think he's got a safe rate of 9. I thought he benefited from Subjectivist going too fast last time out at Goodwood. I thought Subjectivist was the one to take from that race, and he's in here at around 12-1. I think, George, and he's Subjectivist.
Yeah, 12-1. Yeah.
He may well get things all his own way out on the front end if Juan Ocado doesn't pester him because he's stepping up and trips. So he might well get a soft lead again. And I thought he was improving. The form of his Ascot handicap was given a massive boost by the winner, Akum, at the weekend. And I think Subjectivist at around 12-1 is a decent each way price. Look, in terms of the actual winner, I think this race over the years has been won by some outstanding horses, and Durain really does fit that profile. He's only been given a mark of 96. He's obviously got tons more to come, but the hype and the pedigree and all that, it's all built into the price for this race. But these lot don't really set a high enough standard. I thought instead of looking for the winner in this race, I'd be playing Subjectivist each way. If he can get on the front end and make this a bit of a test, be a little bit more conserved than he was at Goodwood, I think he would have the holding of the likes of Mogul and Highland Chief, personally.
Nice. 12-1, Sky Bet, Betfair Sportsbook, Paddy Power, and Betfred for Subjectivist. Andy, what's taking your eye here?
Yeah, I'm similar to Daryl with what I want to take on Mogul. I thought he benefited from how the race panned out at Goodwood. He was in that second echelon in behind the pace setters, like 2 or 3 that went quite quickly from the front, and the pace collapsed, including Subjectivist, who actually did well to hang on for third. But the sort of two horses, the main 2 fancied horses, were held at the back. English King and Al Arzi got given horrific rides by their jockeys on the day, and Mogul he was just in the right place at the right time to slot in the penalty kick that presented itself to him. But I'm certainly not convinced about that form in its entirety. The time figure wasn't good enough to suggest I want to be taking 2-1 here. Durain as well. I don't see what he's done up to now to make me want to back him at 11-4. I agree with Daryl. He's a nice horse going forward.
What do your figures say on? Because obviously, lightly raced.
He hasn't done anything. They went very slowly last time out at Newmarket. Obviously, the slow pace caused him to be very keen, and I thought he did really well to win in the end, given how keen he was. But I mean, he was a 6-on favourite. But because I don't think there was any strength in depth in that race at all. The fact that he was 6-on tells you all you need to know about the others. So there is one horse in this race here who's done much more than what Durain has done, and yet he's 3 times the price, and that's Roberto Escobar. I think this is a fair tool in the making, this Haggis horse. But the day when he ran at Haydock, I think I was doing William Hill Radio that day, and the one horse I said to take out the whole meeting that day was Roberto Escobar. He got no looking whatsoever. There was 2 divisions of a mile and a quarter made. He missed the break, got in all sorts of trouble, finished on the bridle. And it's no great surprise to me to see him then come to York next time out and step up markedly on what he did first time out. But that galloping straight at York really did play to his strengths. If you watch the video back on him, his last 2 furlongs, he was literally taking off. He went from sort of being 2 lengths down and scrubbed along to about 4 or 5 lengths clear at the line. And he beat a very good field. Matthew Flinders had won at Doncaster the time before. A horse called Thamor has got a very, very big reputation. Should have won Wolverhampton the other day, but didn't get a particularly good ride. Brentford Hope was one of the sort of like talking horses for the Derby early in the season. He was 5th. He didn't run too badly the day at Kempton. There was a lot of strength in depth in that race, even though it was a novice stakes. I think he certainly ran up to at least Group 3 standard. And I think the extra trip at the Voltigeur will really suit him. We know he handles York. I think that's another very important point to make. York is a very funky track. It often suits certain types of horses that can handle it, but some horses just will not operate on it. And he's the only horse, as far as I can see, who's got solid form, if not winning form, at the track. So that counts for a lot. Anything that Haggis runs at this his favourite track has got to be seriously marked up. And like I say, I just love him, even though he's rated 90. That's just a total nonsense. You can put the handicapper's got to give him something, and he's obviously just give him a mark based on what he beat that day. But it's quite clear that he's capable of much better than that. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Roberto Escobar here.
Probably says a fair bit that they've stuck him in here rather than sticking him in a handicap and making use of that mark, doesn't it?
That's right. He was down to running the Melrose. I actually think he was priced up in the Ebor. Obviously, the Ebor weights and the entries have come out today, so he wouldn't have been in that. Now he's in his. But I know a lot of firms have quoted him for the Ebor, so some firms have perhaps potentially tried to keep him on side for that. But yeah, he's just completely bypassing any handicap marks that he could have exploited. He would have been a shoe-in if they would have run him in the Melrose. But yeah, look, Haggis knows he's got a group horse, so like I say, forget a rating and 90. It just means it just doesn't mean anything.
Roberto Escobar 7-1 with Sky Bet, Betfair, Bet Victor, and Paddy Power for the Sky Bet Great Voltigeur, the Group 2 at 2:45 on Wednesday, alongside Daryl's picks Subjectivist at 12-1. Now for the Juddmonte, we currently have 6 runners as it stands, and it looks like a hell of a race with Ghaiyyath at 11-8 is the 11-8 favourite with William Hill and Bet Victor. Kameko is 4-1 alongside Magical, and then comes Lord North at 9-2, Aspetar 14-1, and Rose of Kildare 100-1. Let's start with Ghaiyyath, Andy. We've spoken about Ghaiyyath a few times this year, and I think it's quite clear to see that with every run, with every win, the respect that this horse is getting from the racing world just grows and grows. And maybe surprising to me to see him still available at an odds against price here. What do you make of both Ghaiyyath and the likely challenges in behind?
So all of a sudden I've got a wasp in here flying over my head, so I'm just going to try and get that out of the way.
I was wondering what was happening.
Yeah, I'm completely losing the plot here. Can we just get this out of here? Hang on
yeah. Crack on.
So we can edit that. Yeah, he was just flowing all over my head, so anyway, I couldn't concentrate.
So, I mean, what do you make of the chances of Ghaiyyath here and those likely challenges in behind?
Well, it's pretty obvious that win at Sandown last time out in the Coral Eclipse is the benchmark, isn't it? Coming in here to beat Enable the way that he did that day, serving it up from the front, pretty much tells you that he's probably the best mile and a quarter horse around at the moment, certainly in the world over this trip, as far as I could see. Enable obviously wasn't quite on the money that day. Japan hasn't exactly boosted the form, and you could say that neither is Deirdre either. So there is one or two little chinks of armoury in that form line to suggest maybe he might have been a little bit flattered on the day. But it's a hard track to make all the running and serve it up the way that he did. It's a very stiff finish. If he was going to be vulnerable, it would have been on that day. This flatter track should suit him. He'll be off in front again. He's an easy ride, isn't he, for Buick? Just point and shoot him, and the long straight flat tracks, he'll just keep galloping. But I don't think it's quite as straightforward a task as perhaps you or the market suggest there, because we've got one or two big guns coming into this race who've still got quite a bit to offer, including Lord North. I don't think we've quite got to the bottom of this chapel wholeheartedly. I think he's still going the right way physically. To look at him, he's an amazing specimen to look at. So I think there's going to be more to come from him. I think Aspetar's a player. I like the way he won over the track, again, course and distance form, beating the right horses last time out. I don't think there was any fluke about his performance. His winning time was very good. And let's not forget Magical as well. I mean, she didn't beat or couldn't lay a glove on Enable in this race last year, but her time figure when she won it to the Cora last time out suggests she's got even better subsequently, beating Sir Dragonet. That race has worked out well. Armory, who was fourth, has dotted up since. So there's lots of strength in depth in this race, and let's not forget Kameko as well, who was a bit unlucky in the more than a bit unlucky in the Sussex Stakes. So opposition-wise, this race is a good deal deeper, I think, than the Sandown race, notwithstanding Enable's presence anyway. Let's say it's Sandown. So I wouldn't be backing him at 5-4. Whether I'll have a bet in the race, I don't know. But if you gave me a free shot and say, Andy, right, what are you going to chuck it on here? What I'd probably back at the price is Magical. Because I think she's already proven as a dual Group 1 winner, and when she's on her A game, she's as good as it gets. So tentatively her, but yeah, I think this is a fascinating race to watch.
Maybe a watching brief there for Andy, but we'll see on the morning, Wednesday morning, it might be all changed. So keep an eye on his column. But 4-1 about Magical is where he would put his free bet if anyone was foolish enough to give him one. Daryl, what do you make of this 6-runner affair?
I personally couldn't really find an angle into this race. I thought that Ghaiyyath had optimum conditions here to be at his absolute best. I don't think he's going to get taken on for the lead. He's 4 out of 5 over this trip. He's only been beaten by the eventual Arc winner in Volgeist. 3 for 3. And a career best, a 3 for 3 on good ground, and a career best last time. So there's not really any sort of angle to take him on with. I think he's, like I say, I think he's going to get a soft lead, and I think it's going to be catch me if you can. And I'm not entirely sure there's anything good enough in there to catch him. So it's a no bet race for me, even though I do have presented a solid case for Ghaiyyath. 6 to 5.
I was going to say it sounded 11 to 8. Is there not like a bit of an angle there that if you think the race, if you think he's the quality horse and you think that the race is going to, fall to suit, is there not an argument that the 11 to 8 is worth taking?
Yeah, if it was any other horse, but it's Ghaiyyath. And look, we know how he can be. He's not straightforward. He can be at his best one day and he can be a total nutcase the next day. And at 6 to 5, it just doesn't really, to be honest, those sort of prices don't really interest me anyway, normally. So I'll just play a watching brief here. I thought Espetar, I did like the way he won last time, but he's going to need to really step forward again. But he might get this race run to suit if something like Rosa Kildare goes up the front and just pesters Ghaiyyath in the very early part of the race. I don't think she'll be able to go with him for much longer than the first 3 furlongs, but it could be telling early for Ghaiyyath. But no bet for me. Apologies.
That's okay. It's going to be a fascinating race. If there's a race to watch on the day without needing to have a financial interest to make it exciting, that is certainly the one. Should be an absolute cracker with those 6 runners, 5 of them with live chances, you have to say. Moving on now to the 3:45, the third last race of the day. It's another handicap, this time over just over 2 miles. We have Make My Day, 6-1 favourite, Monsieur Lambre, 7-1, True Destiny, 17-2, Volcanic Sky, another one where if you're not using the oddschecker app and you're taking the 6-1 with Bet365 and you find out a couple of minutes later there's 10-1 with Sky Bet and with Bet Victor, you'll feel very, very silly indeed. Just Hubert, 12-1, Solo Saxophone, 12-1 with 365, 7-1 elsewhere. Just in Time, 14s alongside Rochester House, Rajinski, 17 run here. Daryl, I'll come to you first. Any views, any strong fancies? I'm
going to have 2 stabs at this. Here and Now is a horse of Rafe Beckett's that won this in 2018 off a mark of 91. Absolutely hosed up and was put up to a mark of 100 by the handicapper. Now, that was obviously 2018. He's been off since then, returned to Ascot with a lovely prep run to come back here. And today he's off a mark of 96. I love the way he was just smuggled into the race at Ascot. Had a nice little bit of a turn of foot, but it just petered out when he was short of room coming up the inside rail back in June. Now, they've left him off since then, and he's returning to this race. And Ralph Beckett's got a good record in this race. He's won it the last couple of years, previous to last year, 2 years before that, with this horse and with Magic Circle. I think this horse is well handicapped, and I think this has been the target since trying to get him back. So he could be very interesting. And Volcanic Sky was the other one. I thought he could potentially step out of handicap company going forward. He'll need to win. He'll need to be a pattern class performer to win this race off this mark of 102. But he is improving at a rate of knots, and Oisin Murphy's on board. There's a lot to like about him as well. I'm not entirely convinced about the favourite, Make My Day. I think people are looking at that piece of Goodwood form and suggesting that this horse is going to be as good as the horses in behind him. That was a messy race that day, but it was impressive the way it wasn't impressive, but it was a nice performance the way she did it here at York on seasonal return. I'm not entirely convinced she's going to want this mammoth trip of 2 miles though. Make My Day, but I'll be siding with the other Beckett horse.
So Here and Now, as you mentioned, is 18-1. And Volcanic Sky 10-1. The 2 Make My Day, maybe one to swerve at the top of the market. Dandy, do you agree with what Daryl's had to say?
Yeah, largely speaking, bit of a one from left field for Here and Now in many respects. But yeah, I'll have to respect his judgment there. Volcanic Sky definitely could see the angle in on that one, even though he's got top weight. His victory last time at Kempton was a very good time, beating, was it Pianissimo, I think it was last time, track specialist. Yeah. That's fairly solid form. But I must admit, I'm quite surprised that the Goodwood winner, just here, but such a big price here. I think 12-1 across the board strikes me as being a smidgen of value, because he not only won that day, but his runs probably prior to that as well suggested that he wasn't quite the 20-25-1 shot that he should have been. Actually, it was one of those ones I kicked myself, because when I downloaded the numbers and looked back again on that day after he won at Goodwood, he got 3 of the 4 fastest times. It was just a trip which was the issue. I didn't know whether he'd get the 2 mile 4.5. But he's run even his run down the field behind Caravan of Hope in the Northumberland Plate was a good one, considering where he was. But he was a very, very creditable 5th in the Melrose here last year. Again, track form. I keep going on about that. But if you've got a horse that's already proven here at York, particularly in a hot race, it's got to be worth its weight in gold. But that was a good race last year. That Hamish won it. 3rd in line was 2nd. Hamish was favoured for the Ebor this year until having the injury. And 1st in line is going to be a prominent fancy, I would imagine. And he was only like just a few lengths behind those. So he's got form at the track. He stays really well. So, yeah, I think 12-1 for him is more than fair.
12-1 there for Andy. On to the penultimate race of the day. It's the Fillies Sprint over 5 furlongs, 4:20. And only Sky Bet are out at the moment, the sponsors of the race. But at least we actually have some prices, because often when we do these, we have to guess for these last couple of races. But Keep Busy and Dancing in the Street are the 7-2 joint favourites. Lady in France and Pink Sands 11-2 joint second favourites. Maygold 9-1. Electric Ladyland 14s alongside Glorious Anna and Princess Power 16-1 bar. Andy, that's probably the first you've heard of the prices, because I think they are hot off the press. But do they tally with the way that you've tissued up? Well, you would, your tissue would look if you were to price up this race.
Yeah, I haven't even got that far to sort of have a strong opinion on this race yet. Look, the form of that race at York here a few weeks back, won by Queen Jojo, is probably the seminal form line, isn't it? That was a Group 3 contest. It had all the best fillies that went into that race. Lots of horses had been running in listed or pattern races, Group 3s, and some handicappers on the up. And I thought Queen Jojo was a good winner that day. But if you look further down the list, John Quinn's Keep Busy ran a little bit better than the finishing position suggests. He got a bad draw, raced towards the near side fence, didn't get the clearest to run through. I thought that was not a bad run. But then if you take her run in isolation next time out, when she went to Hamilton in a slightly smaller field, I thought she was really destructive that day. She beat Stower Companion El Astronaut very much against the stable's wisdom that day. That they fancied El Astronaut to get the bragging rights. Lahore was in that race as well. He'd previously won at York, and Tarbouche, who was also quite well fancied off the back of a good run at York, he was last of the 5. So there's a lot of strength in depth in that race, and I thought Keep Busy did really well to beat horses who were rated in the hundreds. So technically speaking, she's still quite well handicapped here. She's got a fair draw right in the middle in stall 8 of the 13 runners. So yeah, I'd give her a bit of a positive shout if you held a gun to my head.
I won't do that, Andy. Not yet, anyway. 7-2. Keep Busy. We'll see after a couple of days of York. See where we get to. But Keep Busy 7-2. Daryl, any view here?
Yeah, this is my strongest fancy of the day, probably. Dancing in the Street, back down to 5 furlongs. Don't know what on earth they were thinking going up to 6 furlongs, to be honest with you. Back at 5 furlongs, that third at Ascot behind Art Power, beating only 3 lengths with a clear run, would have finished a little bit closer. And there's no chance she would have beaten Art Power, of course, but she would have finished a little bit closer. That was straight at 115. If they met today, Art Power would have to give her £28. She's better than this mark of 87, and a strongly run 5 furlongs is definitely what she needs. To go back to her run at Haydock behind Ishvara, Royal Context one next time out is £10 higher on a mark of 90. The winner is £10 higher, is £11 higher on a mark of 90, and she got no run that day. She would have won very comfortably that day at Haydock. Back down to 5 furlongs, drawn next to the pace against next to Glorious Anna, who's definitely going to be the pace angle in this in stall 7. I think she can just sit behind, and I think she can just kick away at the finish. I think this is a straight shooting job, if I'm being honest. I hope my confidence pays off in this, because I really do fancy her.
Point and shoot.
Point and shoot. That's what the phrase I was looking for.
And
straight.
I think she qualifies as the horse that I've put up the most so far this season on my checkup. I've put her up the last 3 runs. At Ascot when she was unlucky behind Art Power, as Daryl said. I then went for her again when I wouldn't say she should have won, but the draw did her completely at Newmarket when I think it was the 40-1 shot Progressive Rising that came down the middle, and she won her race on the far side, including Marehouse. I think there's 5 or 6 horses on the far side. And she absolutely skittled them. And I thought, God, this is no way this horse is an 85 rated handicapper based on that run. And then I put her up again at a big price. I think she was 20-1 or something ridiculous in the morning at York. For some reason or another, she just didn't fire that day. Daryl's made a case out being 6 furlongs not being her trip, but she had never at any point did she look like winning, and that's not like her. Normally, she's got very good cruising speed. She sits on the bridle in behind and can really quicken. So whether it was York, whether it was a track, well, I don't know. She just had an off day for me.
Fingers crossed it wasn't York, and that's the.
Well, that's it. So I'd just be a little bit more perhaps circumspect than Daryl is, because she's going back to York, and that was the scene of her only bad run this season, because that was definitely a below par effort. I can't even. I mean, Daryl's made the case out being 6 furlongs a problem, but she stayed 6 really well at Newmarket at the time for on soft ground. So I'm not necessarily it was the trip that did her. I actually thought that she'd benefited more from it, having watched the previous runs over 5, the way she was staying on. Time will tell. He could be right, but like I said, I'm just on the fence with her at the moment after that York run.
Daryl, anything to add or come back with, or should we move on to the last?
I would just forgive her the York run. To be honest with you, in a Group 3 back in a handicap today is a bit of a different level of opposition here. I think if she's not winning off 87, I mean, Christ.
There we go. What a way to finish that race. We've got one more to go, but I love that. That's quite clearly a strong fancy for Daryl. He literally cannot see it beat.
Christ! Exclamation mark.
On to the Nursery now, and again, Sky Better, the race sponsors, and they're the only firm who are currently out with prices now at 1:15 on Monday afternoon. Line of departure is 4-1 favourite ahead of Mutazawed, Churchill Bay. And Mutazawed are both 9-2. Cairn Island is 13-2 alongside Tussarock. Perotto 8-1, 12-1 Bar. Andy, coming to you here first. You had a chance to have a look at this one?
Yeah, I've had a good shifty through this. I think there's quite a well handicapped horse here, off a mark of 80, and his name's Cairn Island. I think he's capable of much better than what we've seen so far. He come up against that Rhythm Master. I'll get onto him a little bit later in another preview, because I do think Richard Fire's got a very good 2-year-old there. But that race at Haydock, that Novice Stakes on the 17th of July, was one of the fastest times I've got outside of like one of the big meetings, like a Goodwood and Ascot. I quickly marked that Rhythm Master down as a group horse, and I followed the form subsequently. Unfortunately, Solent Getaway let the side down for me straight off the bat last week at Haydock, but I just think he found the ground too firm, and he didn't really let himself down. But luckily for the oddschecker followers of my column, Rolf Rembrandt, who was third, got the job done yesterday and bolted up off a mark of 70 in the high 70s. And this Cairn Island was one place behind him in fourth, but he tried to make the running that day, and he was the one that was responsible for such a strong time figure. Anyway, he went to Air next time out, got a bit more of a conservative ride, and absolutely dotted up. He went into that race rated 78, but he's only come out of it £2 higher. His first run was fifth in that very hot maiden at Haydock behind Devious Company, who's now been running in Group 2 races. Youth Spirit was fourth, who went on to win at Newmarket, ran well at Goodwood. He's been running against horses who are now running in races like the Vintage Stakes and the Gym Crack at York. So I mean, how he's got a mark here of 90, God only knows. And Kevin Ryan in these races at York for this particular setup, their colours are often very much to keep on side. He's got a good draw, trap 4, as far as I can see. Don't want to be too far out, too far knit towards the near side, so that'll be absolutely bang on. So yeah, very confident with him to run in a big. What price was he? 13-2.
13-2. He's opened up.
Yeah, he'll definitely be on my short list for Wednesday.
Get on the phone to Sky Bet, Andy.
Well, it's particularly for 13-2, 4 places. Goodness me.
He's so excited. Andy, so excited.
I know. we've had both of you getting very excited in the last couple of races. I don't know.
Well, but the 2-year-olds, like I say, I spend more time watching the 2-year-old races and marking them up and rating them and getting a vision of how good they could be and what kind of rating I'd give them based on their time figures. And some of them just get like that Rolf Rembrandt yesterday. I mean, he got a mark in the 70s and he was up against horses that he should really be beating, and he did. And I think this fella, I don't think there's anything better handicapped than him coming in this race.
There you have it, Daryl. Do you have anything to take on Andy's with, or would you agree?
Absolutely not. I would never take Andy on in the 2-year-old race. Much respect for that. That's a fantastic case. I'll be following him in.
There you have it, 13-2. About the good thing in the lucky last there, Cairn Island 13-2 at the moment as it stands with Sky Bet. Just before we move on and end this Wednesday podcast, then we're going to record Thursday. Back to the Betfair Exchange free bet streak. Let's just say that Magic J wins the firsts for both of you, so you can both spin your winnings onto the next one, or not. If it doesn't win, because it's a free bet streak, what would you be putting your money on? So effectively, what is the nap, Daryl, here on day one? Where would you be putting your second bet?
Dancing in the street. If I could only have one bet for the day, it'd be on Dancing in the Street. But if I could have two in my free bet rolls on, it will definitely be going on Dancing in the Street in a 420.
There we have it. And Andy, yours will be going on to, I reckon, the lucky last.
At the prices, yeah. If it's an each way bet, yeah. If you force me to go win only, then it'd be Cloudbridge. But I'll be hopeful that the figures would lead me down the right direction with Cloudbridge in the Akum and Cairn Island in the last.
Cloudbridge in the Akum and Cairn Island in the last. There you have it. Thank you very much to both Andy and Daryl for joining me today. As I said, make sure you download the oddschecker app so you can see their tips first before anyone else, before the prices start to tumble as well. On the app, you can also get the very best prices, the best free bets, and the best bookie offers. This has been a preview for day one of the York Ebor Festival. We're going to record the Thursday preview now, which you'll be able to find on any podcast channel or on the Oddschecker YouTube page as well. So hopefully we've given you a couple of winners, and please do gamble responsibly.
Sorry about that wasp intervention.
That was funny. You should leave that in.
It's literally like...